That was nice. Welcome, chat. Welcome to the first Warbird stream on Full Flap Sim. I am super excited for this. Um, and I just wanted to say thanks for joining me in this series. This is kind of a passion project, not the usual stuff that we do in the 7.3, um, but this is the side of aviation that really got me into flying and also got me into flight simulator with combat flight sims. So I'm really excited to um, share this with you guys. So thanks for joining me. It's got me super excited, and yeah, looking forward to having some fun with the Warbirds. So water, yep, we are in fact live now. I got a little ahead of myself with the tech stuff. Threw this together last minute. Um, but here we are. So, Zippy, welcome. Radial Engine Mafia Unite. Absolutely. Diabetic Lad, the real Radial Engine Mafia. Welcome, man. Now we're live with a soundtrack from a 1935 children's movie. Dude, welcome. Glad that you could join us. Hopefully the subscription bell let you know that we were live. Pete Ski, welcome. Stephen Hayner, T Sizzle. What's up, y'all? Mickey, how's it going? Turk is in the house. Hey, Turk, we're going to 3 airports today. Every one of them is non-default scenery. So did that just for you um, so that you could appreciate some FS 2020 Yellow Sim scenery. So, um, let's get started. So this is the Golden Age Simulation Stearman. It released about a year ago. And best I could find, it's the best Stearman sim that we have in 2020, and it's pretty good. Um, I've got a little bit of time in real Stearman, um, and this one pretty much captures the feel of what it's like to fly the Stearman. So we're going to take this airplane from the Virginia Beach Aviation Museum here in Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is just south of Naval Air Station Oceana, down the coast of the Outer Banks, and we're going to go down to Kitty Hawk. We'll do a touch and go at Kitty Hawk, and then if everyone's enjoying the stream, then we might continue down to Okracoke Island for some lunch. So, with that said, we can go ahead and jump in the airplane. So we can take the canopy cover off, get the pitot tube cover off. We'll get rid of the tie downs and wheel chocks. We'll undo the control lock, which is right here. That'll unlock the controls. Refueling's been done. We've got 46 gallons of gas. We'll take us, and Zippy's going to jump up front for a little bit of radial flying. And that is it for the tablet. So the tablet is complete. And real world, you do a pre-flight, but the pre-flight on a Stearman is pretty basic, right? I mean, it's a fabric covered airplane, tube steel fuselage, fabric covering. Um, Nothing really crazy about it as far as the pre-flight goes, but there are some unique features that really kind of show the airplane's age. One of them being the fuel gauge, which is right there. It's a little cork in a float up just hanging out of the fuel tank. So we've got that, and then the other thing that we'll have to do. I thought I had the view set up, but we'll actually have to do a lot of stuff outside, as this airplane models a stock PT-13 Stearman. A lot of the modern Stearman airplanes that you see flying today have been modified, um, and we'll get into how exactly they've been modified here in a second. Um, but we're going to have to do stuff the way that they did during the war. So alrighty, guys. So I do have my actual checklist from when I was flying the Stearman. So I'm going to pull that up, and we're just going to step through, starting with the pre-flight in the cockpit. So battery and generator switches, those are over here, and they are off. The control lock has been disengaged. That's this handle right here. The fuel shutoff is this red handle right here, and we're going to turn it to the on position. Mixture is going to be at idle cutoff, and the front seat passenger has been briefed. So at this point, we would just do the normal walk around, checking for all the kind of standard stuff. But now, in order to start the airplane, we actually have to step outside. So we'll get out of the cockpit, And we'll walk around to the front of the airplane here. And this is where you kind of see the airplane's military history is, back in the day, labor was cheap. So I already clicked on the prop once to pull it through. So we just pull the prop through. And the reason that we do that in these radials is um, you'll notice that you have cylinders that are facing down, right? And what happens when the engine shuts down, they're dry sump engines, so the oil tank is back here in the boot cowl. But whatever engine oil is remaining inside the engine can actually seep down into particularly these lower cylinders and into the combustion chambers. And as you know, liquid is incompressible, and so you get what's called a hydraulic lock, where the compression stroke of the engine actually tries to compress engine oil, which is incompressible, and that bends a rod. So what we do is we pull the prop through, one rotation per cylinder in these direct drive engines, so 9 cylinders for us today, and you make sure that you can pull it through by hand. And if you encounter any resistance that's separate from the compression cycle, then you stop. And there's actually a sniffle valve on the bottom of these engines where you can drain the oil out of the bottom cylinders. So we pulled the prop through, and then you'll come over here, and this is actually the starter panel for the airplane. So what we're going to do is we're going to prime the engine here. So we had the fuel selector on inside. We're going to open the primer, and we're going to give it 2 shots of prime. And then we're going to jump back in the cockpit and turn the mags on, set the engine instruments. We'll jump through the wing strut here for simplicity's sake. So we're going to turn the mags on. We're going to put the mixture to full rich. We'll crack the throttle. We're going to set the parking brake. We'll have Zippy hold the parking brake as well. And we'll wind the starter up. All right. This is a inertia starter. We should have sim sounds here in a second. And then simply pull on the starter handle. And it should start up. Uh-oh. Why is it not starting, chat? What do we do? There we go. We got to turn the battery and generator on. That's why. There we go. Turn the battery and generator on and pull. There we go. All right, looks like we got a good start. And jump back in the cockpit, and we'll pull the RPM back down to 600 RPM. There we go. Real world, the battery wouldn't have to be on with that, but I think that's the sim limitation with the GAS. Okay, first thing that we do is we check the oil pressure, and it's coming up nicely. And then we're actually going to turn the carb heat on because the Stearman gets carb ice fairly easily. So just make sure that that's working, and then we'll turn it back off again and let the engine warm up at 600 RPM. It's kind of cool how the airplane rocks back and forth on the landing gear. But yeah, definitely a team effort to start. The later model, well, not even later model Stearmans, the ones that have been modified for civilian use, typically have the primer located in the panel, as well as a starter handle with an electric starter. I've actually never flown a Stearman that had the inertia starter fitted, just because it's it's a 2-person job to get the airplane started when you don't have any internal controls. So. Alrighty, we are all set. Now you'll notice here that what we're not going to do is we're not going to lean the mixture at all on the ground, and the reason is unlike a flat engine, like a horizontally opposed engine, the radials get really lousy fuel air mixture distribution, meaning the each cylinder gets a different mixture basically because different amounts of air get to different cylinders. And so if you lean a radial on the ground, it tends to quit or run very rough. So we tend not to lean them on the ground that much. unless you need to for density altitude. The other thing that you'll notice is you can't see anything out of this airplane. So you have to S-turn back and forth. So what you'll do is you basically look out the left side. We've now cleared this area, and now we can turn towards that area while looking out the other side and make sure we're not going to hit anything down here. And then we'll turn back the other way and basically do this drunken weave down down the runway, or down the taxiway rather. AJ, just like car motorcycle, you know, it's funny, these old airplanes tend to have a lot more in common with motorcycles than they do anything else. Very similar technology. We want to keep the RPM fairly low while the engine warms up. The oil's still cool, but it's coming up. Diabetic lad. So the funny thing is that Zippy's view up front is actually worse than the pilot's view from the back. You wouldn't think it, but you get less of this peripheral vision. And this area right here on either side of the fuselage is really what you're using to control the airplane. And unfortunately, being in the front cockpit, you lose a lot of this because the fuselage is wider up front. So the front cockpit of a Stearman is actually one of the most blind places with regard to where to fly the airplane from. So it's actually much more challenging, in my opinion, from the front than it is from the back. All right. So the first goal is not to hit anything as we taxi down the taxiway here. The tail wheel is fully steering, so it's hooked to the rudder pedal, so you really don't need much brake or anything to steer the airplane. And this is a private field, but we'll stop right here. There's no wind today, so there's no need to turn into the wind, and we'll just let the airplane warm up. Zippy, I can't see shit out of this thing. Yep, 100% correct, man. All right, well, we let the airplane warm up. Pull out the checklist here. We got the airplane started, so now we're going to go down the taxi procedure we talked about. Mixture rich, carb heat is cold. We checked the brakes. The other thing with stick position is the thing about these old Warbirds is they're not necessarily extraordinarily challenging to fly, although they will bite you. It's more the fact that everything that we learned in our private pilot training came from these airplanes. And so you have to do all of the stuff that you were taught in private pilot training that we've since forgotten because airplanes don't require it anymore. So for example, crosswind inputs when you're taxiing, right? Diving away from a quartering tailwind, climbing into a headwind, that kind of thing, using the rudder to coordinate turns. These are all the kinds of things that you have to do every single time in a Stearman, because what you'll notice about the airplane is it's got a very narrow landing gear, and all the fuel, 46 gallons of it, so 250 pounds of fuel, is in the top wing, which is 10 feet off the ground. So you have a very high center of gravity, very narrow gear, and you can't see anything out of it, as well as a lot of surface area for wind to catch. So you do have to stay on top of the airplane, but the nice thing is that everything happens fairly slowly, and you have a lot of control authority because the control surfaces are rather large. So okay, we can do the run up now. The other thing with radials is the power band is actually very narrow. So what you'll find is that whereas most flat engines today run up to 2,800, 3,000, 2,700 RPM, this engine only runs up to 2,000 RPM, and it idles at 600. So you have a very narrow range of RPM within which the engine works. And so decreasing 100 RPM in a radial is significantly more power than decreasing 100 RPM in a flat engine. So you have to be a little more precise with your power inputs than you do normally. So, all right, we've got the airplane that's into the wind. We're going to hold the brakes. We'll check the controls. And in real life, the controls move a ton in a Stearman. There's a very wide, this doesn't really do it justice, but I mean the stick moves probably 3 times that much. I mean the stick is all over the cockpit when you're wiping the controls out. Rudder pedals, so these tabs here, you can actually move these rudder pedals individually to fit, you know, different size pilots. So you want to make sure that they're locked and also that they're centered at neutral rudder. So you want to take a look at the rudder, make sure the rudder is centered, and then make sure that the pedals are centered as well, because it's possible to have this pedal adjusted further out, this pedal adjusted further in, and now you have no idea where the neutral point is on your rudder. So got the rudder pedals adjusted. Elevator trim is this handle down here, and we're going to just adjust very slightly nose down to accommodate for Zippy there in the front seat. Mixture is rich. The fuel shutoff valve is on. It's very simple. It gravity feeds out of the top wing, which is nice. And now we can do the engine run up. So we have 40 degrees on the oil, so that's plenty warm for us. So we're going to run up to, we're going to hold the stick all the way back in our lap, and we're going to run the engine up to 1200 RPM, which sounds like significantly less than, you know, most engines, but when you keep in mind that we're only going to 2000 for takeoff power, it's a fair amount of power. All right, we'll do a mag check. That's pretty standard. All right, it's a very slight drop. Back up. Is doing about a 50, maybe a 25 RPM drop per mag. That looks good. Check the carb heat. Very little drop at the carb heat. Make sure that that's all squared away. Engine instruments right here. Checking that these are all good. Oil temperature is above 40. It's warming up nicely. We want to see about 180 to 200 when we're flying. Below 100 psi in the oil, and fuel pressure is looking good. Now we can pull it back down to 600 RPM. All right, and we'll hit the magic B key to set the altimeter, and we are set. So we'll taxi out onto the runway, doing a quick S turn. All right, looking over the side, making sure that we're clear. Okay. And the one thing you want to do when you're flying a Stearman is find an attitude reference for when the airplane's on the ground. So in this case for me, and this is in real life as well, sim sounds are all the way up, Zippy. It's not a fantastic sound pack, so you might hear, I'll bump my voice down, and you can bump the sim sounds up. So that'll help balance a little bit. I don't know if that's better. So for reference here, take note of where the horizon is relative to some part of the fuselage structure. So in this case, for me, the windscreen makes kind of a good horizon reference, right? So when we're in a 3-point attitude, this horizon or this windshield bar kind of matches the horizon. So try that now. Can you bump your YouTube volume up? Okay, there we go. How about that? Try it now. Check, check, check. So what I was saying is, one thing that's important is when you're taxiing out, you want to make sure that the horizon, you kind of want to get a reference for where the horizon is. So in this case, a little more up. There we go. In this case, you want to, the horizon for me basically is along this line on the windscreen. So that's going to be our 3-point attitude reference and what we're going to use when we're coming back in to land. So there we go. All right. For the takeoff procedure, we're just going to hold the elevator full aft at first, which is kind of tailwheel standard, and then once we're rolling, we're going to ease the elevator to neutral. And what's going to happen is the tail is going to start to come up on its own. Once the tail comes up, we're going to use aft elevator to stop it about a foot off the ground in a tail low attitude, and we're just going to let the airplane come off the ground whenever it wants to. We're going to maintain directional control with the rudders, which can be fairly challenging, although it's calm winds today, so it should be fine. And then we're going to climb out at 75 miles an hour. The other thing we're going to do is once we're safely clear of obstacles, we're going to pull the power back to 1900 RPM, and we'll discuss why we do that as we climb out. So here we go, guys. Taking off in the Stearman, sticks full back in our lap. Here we go. Want to be real gentle with the power addition, as there is quite a bit of torque from that propeller up there. All right, stick comes to neutral, then hold it aft with the tail wheel about a foot off the ground, maintain directional control, a little bit of a bounce, and we're off. And the thing just levitates off the ground. It's incredible, really. The feeling of just levitating off the ground in a biplane is crazy. All right, there's 75 miles an hour. And we're clear of obstacles, and we're going to pull the power back to about 1900 RPM. And we're off. All right. And we'll start a little turn out here over the expensive rich people houses with swimming pools. And we'll head out to the beach. As far as navigation, we're doing it old school. We're just going to go to the water and follow the coastline all the way down. So, verify our engine instruments are all in the green. They look good, and about 90 miles an hour is what you're going to get out of a Stearman. That's a pretty good day for cruise altitude, or for cruise airspeed rather. But as you can see, the visibility is incredible, everywhere except out the front. We'll climb up to 1,000 feet until we get out to the coast, and then we'll drop back down. Can you slap Zippy in the back of the head? So one of the hardest things about flying these things is actually communicating with the person you're flying with, because it's extraordinarily loud. And active noise canceling, I found, doesn't really do much. So what you're doing is you really communicate via a lot of hand signals up in this. This is a mirror right here, so that you can see the person in the other cockpit. And so a lot of your communication is actually nonverbal in these airplanes. Even the ones that have intercoms, it's fairly marginal. Oh man, big sim in the house. Yeah, Pearl Harbor vibes, man. Dude, this is the way to go. Open cockpit. All right, so we're climbing out. There is a legal requirement that when you're flying an open cockpit biplane, you're not allowed to go above 1,000 feet during your flight. So we're going to stay at 1,000 feet or less the entire stream today. At least that's the goal. Look at that. Blowout V1 soundbar. All right, there's 1,000 feet, and we'll pull the prop back, or the power back just a little bit to about 1850 RPM, 1800 RPM. That'll do, and we'll cruise. We can bring the mixture back a little bit. Again, there's not really a science to the leaning a mixture in a radial. You just want to pull the mixture back till the engine gets rough, and then push it back until it gets smooth. There it is. Gets a little rough. Push it back. About there. And Stearman burns about 12 gallons an hour, so it's pretty miserly fuel burn. I mean, it's no more than a Cessna 182 or 172 burns. It's just going a little slower while it does it. Zippy. Outside sounds pretty good. Inside is super quiet, as in the plane. Do not touch your sound settings. Okay. I will not touch. I won't touch nothing. Okay, so going down to first flight, we're going to pick up, this is the Albemarle Sound here in North Carolina. The U.S. Navy's Dare County bombing range is actually down there, where I learned to drop bombs out of the Hornet. And we're just going to pick up the beach on the Outer Banks, drop down to 500 feet, and fly down to Kitty Hawk. So the reason that you pull the power back to 1900 on takeoff is the engine. This is a Lycoming, being a PT-13, but the PT-17, which GAS has also modeled, has a Continental 670, which is what I've flown. The engine has an enrichment valve on it that basically, when you go into the last 3/4 of an inch of throttle travel, it just dumps a whole bunch of extra fuel into the engine as anti-detonation margin for takeoff. Well, for cruise, you don't really want to be sitting there with the enrichment valve open, so you pull the throttle back 3/4 of an inch, and it reduces the fuel flow quite significantly. So, but for that reason, you never do reduced power takeoffs in a radial engine. You always use full rated takeoff power because the enrichment valves are set to open at takeoff power, and they provide enhanced cooling to the engine. So doing a reduced power takeoff in the Stearman would actually be significantly more detrimental to the health of the engine than just taking off at full power. Single engine airplanes, you're always checking your engine instruments. The other thing about these biplanes is there's so much drag between all the flying wires, the end struts, the fact that the cockpits are open. The glide ratio on this is probably a little bit better than your keys. So, so if the engine quits, you're basically landing right here. Basically, I was told if you can see it directly on either side of the fuselage, you can probably land on it. But other than that, you're not going to get much of a glide out of a biplane like this. So we'll sneak on down to 500 feet here. And just enjoy the view. The irony of the sim sounds being quiet inside the airplane is not lost on me. I mean, it's hellaciously loud in these open cockpit airplanes. It honestly makes them a little fatiguing to fly because I mean, it's probably not unlike driving a Harley down the freeway for 2 or 3 hours. Got a little bit of flame coming out the exhaust. All right. This used to be the standard weekend in Virginia Beach, was fly down to Okracoke Island for lunch. All right, see if we can get the airplane trimmed. It's just pitch trim. There's no rudder or aileron trim, but you really don't need rudder or aileron trim because the trim tab on the tail is set, and the fuel tank is right on center line, so the airplane stays in trim pretty well. Force Raptor, only slightly noisier than the 737. You're not wrong, although the active noise canceling works a little better in the 7.3. The flight model in the GAS Stearman is a little generous. We're doing 95 miles an hour right now, which is basically supersonic for a biplane. But it's a little bit overpowered, but nothing egregious. And I tell you what, the visuals they've knocked out of the park. This is exactly what your view looks like out of a Stearman. Stephen Hayner, yeah. The early days before human factors and parasitic drag were figured out, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you fly these older airplanes, you know, the human factors or lack thereof is kind of crazy. Like, hey, we're going to put the starting controls outside on the cowling. All right, so let's take a look at our VFR chart. Actually, I'm going to look at a sectional chart on SkyVector because I don't want to cheat. Don't want to use the iPad like Big Sim does when he's navigating VFR. All right, so basically we're just going to keep going down here. We're effectively, this is Knott's Island right here. So we're going to keep going past Knott's Island. We're about a quarter of the way down to first flight. So if you've ever been here in real life, there's kind of a cool monument to the Wright brothers down at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, where we're about to go. It's definitely worth a visit if you live on the East Coast. Zippy, been watching Ice Pilots with Buffalo. Watching those DC-3 shoot flames on takeoff and approach is so good. We need a dev to make it a good DC-3. I fully agree. The Duckworks mod is great for freeware, but I miss the days of A2A when when a dev took radial engine old airplanes seriously, because there's so much, that can be modeled here as far as engine damage due to hydraulic lock, and the Stearman, frankly, is such an aerodynamic basket case that it's kind of a good airplane to really explore a flight model, I feel like, if somebody wanted to. But unfortunately, just like real aviation has kind of left these machines behind, the sim world doesn't really seem incredibly interested in them either. So, there's probably going to come a time when biplanes are a thing of the past. Force Raptor. So yeah, we're gonna see the drag curve on these biplanes is insane. Couple that with the fact that you can't see forward. So what you do is you have to put the airplane into a slip in order to basically put the runway on either side of the nose, like right here or here. So you do end up coming down at a pretty good clip. When you come in to land these things, it's pretty impressive the first couple times you do it, and definitely a reason that you don't want to lose an engine in something like this. Mickey G did a cross country down the first flight in college in 172. Awesome, man. Yeah, it's a pretty cool place to go. In real life, you want to be very careful about banner towers when you're flying down the beach like this, because 500 feet down the beach line is prime banner tow territory. The visibility forward is never really good in the Stearman. I mean, you've got Zippy's head right here in the way, but even without that, you've got the radial engine up here, so you really can't see a whole heck of a lot without actually leaning your head overboard out the side to kind of see a little better, which is why goggles are actually fairly helpful when you're flying a biplane. Stephen Hayner, we need more A320s for sure. All right, we're going to step outside, folks. Watch your ears. Yeah, the outside sounds are pretty good in this. I love that prop disc. Frankly, the actual sounds on the inside are pretty good too. They're just a little quiet. All right, we're going to climb a little bit just so I can get a better feel for the terrain here. So we're going to push the mixture all the way forward. RPM comes up to 1900, which is our climb setting. And up we go. It's a little too much throttle. Nothing happens fast in this turbine, so even a climb is a very leisurely affair. Need to get Ductworks or 3D Modeler. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The default model, I think, is, what, Airplane Heaven for that DC-3? Yeah, the PMDG DC-6 is probably unfortunately, it's probably the only heavy radial that we have right now, right? Because A2A sort of exited flight sim, it seems. They did their Comanche for 2020, but that's the only product they brought to market in the entire life cycle of the sim. This sounds like my number 3 engine after I cooked it to cam loops. Yeah, Stephen Hayner. And the funny thing is that for a biplane, the Stearman is modern. I mean, this is a 1937, I think, design. So, I mean, by time the Stearman was designed, we kind of left biplanes for monoplanes. So this is as refined as you get in the biplane world. Yeah, it's actually got some metal in it. That's right. Okay, so Okracoke Regional should be out that way. Somewhere. And then first flight, basically, this inland island here, where it comes to an end, first flight is just down here. So we're about halfway there. Marco, A2A is working on the Aerostar 600. Awesome. I would fly that in a heartbeat. I know a gringo who would fly an Aerostar in a heartbeat. I bet V1 will be all over that, especially if it's in 2024. An Aerostar. Yeah, diabetic lad. So there are 2 different props for the Stearman. This is the wooden prop. This is the wooden Sensnitch, the wooden Sensnitch prop. The other option is a metal Macaulay that has slightly better performance. Matter of fact, the flight model for this airplane may be based off a metal prop, which could be why it performs a little better. The metal prop has an AD on it, an airworthiness directive, where it has to be inspected, the prop hub, every, I want to say 100 hours. And then the other issue is if the airplane ends up on its nose, which is not unheard of for Stearman, the wood prop breaks and protects the engine, whereas the metal prop does not. So a lot of Stearmans flying today have wooden props for that reason. So. What is PMDG charging for the DC-6 these days? It was the first add-on I bought for 2020, so I haven't priced it out recently. As far as constant speed props go, and GAS includes this in this package as well, you can put a 300 Lycoming radial on the front of this, and those airplanes have constant speed propellers. That help with climb. Unfortunately, 90 to 100 miles an hour is about as fast as you're going to get a Stearman going. regardless. But they do help with climb significantly. And the 300 like that GAS is modeled has the primer and starter controls inside the cockpit, so you don't have to jump outside to do the engine start like we had to on this. But I kind of wanted to fly the original old school Stearman for today. Yeah. Yeah, Stephen Hayner, can you imagine a machine gun bolted up here on the top wing? We could do a little air work in this thing. The roll rate on a Stearman is leisurely. So if we increase power, dive to get about 110 knots. And the big thing is you have to pull the nose up a pretty fair amount, otherwise it'll fall through on you coming down the backside. So there's about 110. We'll pull all the way back, put our feet just above the horizon, and roll to the left with a lot of rudder because adverse yaw. There we go. All right, and we're level, and pull back up. It's doing aerobatics in the Stearman is very, it's very gentlemanly because you have to dive for airspeed for every single maneuver. So you tend to end up descending quite a bit at the end of every maneuver. It is an exercise in coordination as well because adverse yaw is very much a thing. So you can see if we just put in a bunch of aileron with no rudder, the ball goes all over the place. So it's definitely an airplane that you need to coordinate with rudder every time you put in aileron input. The T6 as well, but not to as great of a extent as the Stearman. But the rudder is very effective. Okay, pull the power back a touch. $60 for the DC-6. I mean, here's the thing though, if you sit down with checklists and really learn the DC-6, you know, as far as operating it correctly and not damaging the engines and all that kind of stuff, it's you'll get a lot of time invested for that $60. All right, so there's Pine something. Let me check my chart here. Big Sim needs to take note here that we're not using the iPad cheating. Okay, so there's Pine Island right there, which means we're almost first flight actually. So first flight should be right down here, and I believe that's the monument. So we'll take a look. We'll overfly it and then descend down, overfly the monument, and then maybe do a touch and go. Stephen Hayner, cost per flight hour for flight sim is relatively sedate as far as hobbies go. That is true. Yeah, high cost to entry. That's for sure. But I mean, if you think about, like, if I think about the amount of time that I put on this PC that I made in 2020, yeah, that's 5 years. God, I don't even know how many hours I've spent on this thing. Tim K, I've got a videotape somewhere that covers inverted spins, and they use a stock Stearman inverted spins. Ugh, a training film for the 40s. Man, the first time you go upside down in one of these things, it really, the first thing that you think about is, hey, how are these seatbelts bolted to the structure? Because just emotionally, there's something about not having anything above you when you go upside down. If I'm being totally honest, I don't really love doing loops and stuff in the Stearman. They're also 70-year-old airplanes. All wood, in fact. some of you may not know this, the structure is all wood in a Stearman. So Stearman wings literally grow on trees. But the spar and the wing ribs and all the everything in them are wood. And what's interesting is I actually helped hang the wings on my buddy's 1929 Fleet yesterday, and this whole structure, it's kind of interesting. When you just put the top wing on, it's not necessarily the most structurally stable thing in the world. Same with the bottom wings, until what really gives this thing all its rigidity is the flying wires and the landing wires. Even the struts out here don't really solidify the whole structure. It's these wires that really give the thing all of its strength. And these wires here, going from the fuselage to the top wing, these are called flying wires because they support the top wing during flight operations when the main loads are going up. And then these wires going down, these are the landing wires because they basically support the bottom wing for landing loads, flexing downwards. And then you have the end struts that tie the whole thing together. So the load paths in the wing design of these biplanes is pretty incredible. This is where seatbelts and shoulder harnesses comes from. That's 100% true. Felix, hey, wood doesn't corrode. That is very true. It does not corrode. That's a huge benefit of wood. It also doesn't have a structural memory. So, assuming you don't hit the yield strength of wood, it doesn't fatigue with cycles like metal does. So there's some definite benefits to wood construction. But it does get eaten by termites and it does rot with moisture. So give and take. Take a look over here. Always clearing your flight path, looking down the side of the fuselage. The other thing that makes it hard to give rides in a Stearman is the passenger is kind of alone up there. It's loud. The headset may or may not work very well, so it can be kind of isolating. V1, yeah, it definitely can rot if it's left exposed to the elements. That said, with the varnish and the wood prep and everything that goes into these airplanes, it's pretty impressive how weatherproof it actually is. Because I mean, you got to think they were designed to be left out in the elements. All right, let me check the map again. Alright, so we've got the twin bridges right here. I love this part of 2020 is that the scenery now matches the charts so incredibly well that you can actually do VFR nav in 2020. So we've got the twin bridges right here if you're following along on SkyVector. So now first flight should be just a beam, this big protrusion out to the west, which would be big protrusion out to the west. There's a second one right there. There's first flight. There it is. There she blows. We found it. One of my favorite books is Cannibal Queen, where a Navy A6 pilot buys a Stearman and flies it across the country, navigating with a chart. It's a pretty good book if you haven't read it. Laughs in fiberglass and carbon composite. I mean, that's the thing. Wood is nature's composite, right? Tim K, I was lucky enough to solo in one at 16, an N2S3. That is incredible. With an old Navy instructor, curved downwind to final is nice with no forward viz. Loving this stream. Thanks. Tim K, that is fantastic. You can count me as supremely jealous of that experience. I truly believe. I'm going to increase the sun angle here just a little bit so we're not staring into the sun. There we go. I truly believe that we would be a much better generation of pilots if we all did at least 10 hours in one of these things. Okay, so there's first flight right here. It is, I believe, left-hand traffic. Let's see, right pattern for 2-1, which is the south runway. So yeah, left traffic for 3. So we'll do left traffic to runway 3. So we'll start descending to get on a 45 for the left downwind. And we'll use 1,000 feet for pattern altitude. Alright, so we'll pull the power back a little bit and carb heat on every power reduction in this thing. So carb heat's on, power reduction, down we go. And it doesn't take much of a power reduction to descend in a Stearman. Matter of fact, like I said, about 100 RPM below cruise power will start you on down. Tim K, absolutely, man. Yeah, post that picture in the Discord. I want to see that. Digital Mark, my great uncle told me some crazy stories flying a Hellcat in the Pacific with no radio or nav. Found the carrier from bioluminescence to the wing. I have actually done that in a Hornet. We were flying comm out, and now granted I had ways to find the ship, but I didn't need it because I turned the cockpit lights down and saw the bioluminescent wake. That's actually a real thing. Ah, that is cool. We stand on the shoulders of giants. All right. We'll do a quick flyby of first flight, and then maybe do a touch and go. And then we can keep it going down to Okracoke. Actually, what do you think? We'll just do a so that we don't have to turn around. We'll just do a flyby here of first flight down runway 21, and then we'll do the full stop landing down in Okracoke. All right. Pull the power back just a little bit more. Fuel's looking good. Digital Mark ended his career at Pensacola Air Station where he retired. Hey, and where you started. Pensacola's got some real fond, I've got real fond memories of Pensacola. Mick and G's going back down there, reliving the glory days. The other nice thing about a Stearman is V&E is not really a concern because you couldn't get there if you wanted to. It's 160 miles an hour, and I don't think you could get there pointed straight down with wind behind you. All right, we'll just do a low flyby here. So this is Kill Devil Hills, where our little profession started. This is a great museum. You've got a museum that has a replica of the Wright Flyer, and then this track right here marks the actual first flight, right here. This is where the magic happened. Or maybe it's this. But one of those two markers. And there's Kill Devil Hill. That's where it all began. That's neat. All right, back down the beach. If you look at the Wright Flyer, you can see that the Wright brothers were crazier than any of us. I'm not strapping myself to that kite. It is so true. Just a different generation. And the funny thing is if you look at the Stearman through the lens of what the Wright brothers flew, this thing was space age. You know, I mean, it's like going from covered wagon to space shuttle. And now it's archaic. Okay, we got to check the chart here because there is a bombing range out here that we can't, that we don't want to fly through. Alright, so basically if we just keep following, let's see, I guess those are MOAs, so technically we could fly through them. No, if we just keep following the outer banks here, that'll take us right to Okracoke. So that was Wright Brothers. This is Manio-Dare County, right here. Let's see, right there, that's Manio-Dare County. And then the Dare County bombing range, I wonder if we can see it in the sim. Climb up, see if we can see it. Go up to 2,500 feet, which is like outer space in the Stearman. Scenery is missing about 5,000 kites on the beach, yeah. That and all the banner towers. So Dare County range would be right across the sound. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so the Dare County bombing range is right just a little south, so about here. That's where all the F-18s at Oceana do their bombing practice. Or the Pamlico Sound down south here. But they'll be well above where we are. Uh, 2,500 is probably a good place to stop. Getting lazy on my rudder. Ball's all out of center. Oil's getting a little warm, so we'll try and cool it off in cruise here. I think one of the Wright brothers managed to get into the cockpit, if not actually fly a Lockheed Constellation right at the end. What must that have been like? Probably Orville? I think Orville died in 1947, so that timeline would check out, I think. He definitely got to see jets fly. He definitely got to saw the P-80. So, yeah, I cannot imagine. Just that the amount of technical achievement in aviation in that time, in such a short time frame, is pretty incredible. Zippy, your great-grandfather flew Hawker Typhoons in the war. Really? Did you see? Did you see that they're restoring a Typhoon? Or no, that's a Tempest. What is going on down here? What in the Green New Deal? That can't be real, right? Doesn't show up on the chart, so I'm going to say that that's an Azoboism. Steven Hager, mine was trained to fly Zeros at the end of the war. Really? Like Mitsubishi Zeros? Yeah, Zippy, the Typhoon is deceivingly big. Like, you'd think it's, or at least I thought it was P-51 size, but it's actually closer to Sea Fury size. The thing is gigantic. Which, speaking of which, the Sea Fury is a massive airplane as well. Just an absolute unit of an airplane. He was press ganged into training, then the war ended 2 weeks later. No kidding. Wow. I'd say that worked out for him. The story my old man likes to tell is that my great-grandfather didn't see an automobile till he was in his 20s and then lived long enough to see reusable spacecraft. Wow. The 20th century was nuts for technology. That is absolutely incredible. Can you imagine that? Don't see a car until you're 20. It's still an automobile, right? It's an automatic coach. And then sees the space shuttle. So when I was flying rides for a little while down in SoCal. Let me check the chart, make sure I'm not about to violate a MOA here. Yep, we got to stay over the land because there's a barge that's actually tied up out here in the Pamlico Sound that the Navy uses for, and the Strike Eagles out of North Carolina Seymour Johnson used for bombing practice. I've actually dive bombed the barge that's out here, but for today's flight we have to stay outside that restricted area. So I was given rides in Marchetti SF-260s showing civilians, basically giving them a dogfight experience. And we had a Israeli general who came out, who was basically asked to come out and fly with one of our civilian pilot customers. The customer flew the guy out from Israel and paid his ticket and all that kind of stuff. And, what was cool was he ended his career in the Israeli Air Force flying the F-15A and the F-16A, but he started his career flying a biplane like this. Flew a biplane, a T-6, a T-33 Shooting Star, and then his combat career was in the Mirage, the F-4 Phantom, the F-16, and the F-15. What a time to be in aviation. Zippy, yeah, exactly. Same, yeah, Hurricane, Mustang size, something like that, but no, they're gigantic. Yeah, Steve, can you imagine that, right? The first airplane you ever flew in your career was this, and then the last airplane you flew was an F-15 Eagle. Just incredible. I'm enjoying the hell out of this GAS Stearman. There's a lighthouse up ahead here that should be just at the southern tip of the Outer Banks. Yeah, it's right by Billy Mitchell Field, the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. So we'll go ahead and fly by that on the way to Okracoke. Okracoke is a great general aviation destination on the East Coast. It's a super cool little town. There's a restaurant in town that has a general aviation scanner, and if you make a CTAF or a Unicom call about 15 minutes before you land, they'll actually send a golf cart out to come pick you up, and they'll drive you to the restaurant, you eat lunch, and then they'll drive you back. It's a pretty short drive. You could walk it if you really wanted to, but this was our standard weekend lunch run in when I was in Virginia Beach. Granted, it went a little faster in a Lancer than it did in a Stearman. 500 subs. We made it. We made it, chat. Sweet. Well, hey, y'all. This is as good a time as any to thank you for the support. Consider myself very lucky to be able to share this hobby with all of you. Find a whole bunch of like-minded folks that enjoy the same thing that we're all passionate about. So means the world that y'all take time out of your day to listen to me blather about old airplanes. So I really, truly appreciate it. My wife is still shocked by the fact that y'all are willing to take time out of your day to listen to me talk. How's that for a screenshot? Yellow sim looking pretty good. Eat your heart out, 2024. We could actually dive down and have a little fun here. Do a little bit of low-level flying before we have to pull back up for some airports. I think V1's monitor might be busted. Well, the other thing too is I've got a NVIDIA filter that somebody showed me how to put on, and so it looks even less yellow on my screen than it does on stream. So it's looking pretty juicy on my end. Zippy. That's a good point. That's a good point, actually. This is actually pretty accurate. It always concerned me the first time I flew a Stearman, and I was like, there's fire coming out the exhaust right next to a fabric wing, but apparently it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. Apparently there's a pretty high concentration of great white sharks in these waters, so that should always make you feel good flying over them. The kind of interesting thing is these windscreens do a really good job of blocking the wind. So if you hunker down here behind the windscreen, in the Stearman, it's actually not, you don't get any wind blast from the outside, which is it was pretty surprising to me. Non-flammable fabric until it's flammable. Yeah, well, I mean, during the war, it was 100% cotton covered in dope, nitrile dope, right? I mean, that's the definition of flammable. But now we have much better fabrics and such that don't have to worry about it. The other cool thing about the Outer Banks down here is you can actually drive your car onto the beach. It's one of the few beaches I think you can still do it. Definitely got my Honda Civic stuck a couple years ago. And there are some spots where you can't because there's sea turtle hatcheries, but there's definitely places where you can drive down here and park on the beach. Man, this is way better than flying an airliner. Something about these old military cockpits too, with just the flat black panels and the way the instruments are laid out. I can't really put my finger on what it is that's so cool about this to me, but you know, you got the rudder pedals are way apart. It's not like all the civilian airplanes where the pedals are right next to each other. You're straddling the fuselage in this with these rudder pedals. You've got the map case, although it's got radios in it. The modern, it's a good place where they hide most of the radios in the restorations. We're having way more fun than these people. Zippy, airliner and GA props both have their merits. That's true. I get a lot of thrill out of flying the airliners too, be it a 7.3, be it an Airbus. Um, there's something cool about flying a big complex machine. Stephen Hader, to me, flying is a lot like riding a horse. Yeah, kind of harkens back to an earlier era. or like riding a donkey. Yeah. What's crazy about flying a Stearman is it's this odd juxtaposition. That's a big word for an airline pilot. It's this odd juxtaposition of, in some ways, it's a very big airplane, right? Just physically, from a size perspective, it's large. It's got 220, 230 horsepower. You know, which is, it's a pretty big displacement engine for general aviation standards, right? It's got a giant prop. The cockpit is huge when you're sitting in it. And then on the other hand, it flies slower than a Cessna 150. You know, I mean, this is probably the one airplane that the Cessna 150 would have to slow down for. And so it's just kind of a unique experience. We need dynamic waves in 2024. It's the one thing that would make this better right now. Dynamic waves. Zippy, I agree, man. Yeah, taking the 320 into challenging airports is also rewarding. Yeah, like I did Kai-Tak the other day in the 321. That was pretty cool. That was really, really cool. Plus, in the airlines too, there's a mission accomplishment factor, right? You know, like, I don't know, when the weather's lousy and I land and saying goodbye to everybody, and you see some like family getting off the plane with their kids going on vacation or something, you know, it's just makes you feel good that you've accomplished the mission. Oh my God, a 747 Classic win. That is a day one buy. I've got the Felis. I'm currently trying to learn how to use it because the 7.4 Classic is our next classic airliner that we need to do, because we did a DC-3, we did a DC-6. I don't have a good early 707. The 7.2 by FSS is broken for me right now because it WASM crashes every time I try and fly it. So the 7.4 into Kai-Tak, I think, is the next historic airliner stream we have to do. So maybe that'll be it. Felis 7.4 into Kai-Tak and X-Plane. Shooting the NDB. I don't even know how to shoot an NDB approach. I would have to learn how to shoot an NDB and then do it in the 747 into Kai-Tak. Water. That's it, man. That feeling when the wheels come off the ground that's it, man. And it doesn't matter if it's in a Stearman or an F-16 or a Cherokee Warrior or a Cessna 152. It's all flying. I haven't met an airplane I didn't enjoy yet. Man, an airplane like this would be the percentage threat to my pilot's license, because I'm pretty sure this is very illegal right now. Well, I mean, there's not any people here, so we are 500 feet away from people, persons, or property, right? We might be okay. Yeah, Water. I don't know that there is a way to recreate it, man. You just gotta get in an airplane and go flying. The beautiful thing about the Stearman as a trainer too is it's a very simple airplane. I mean, what do you have as far as checklists, right? I mean, the electrical system is just a battery and a generator, and the only reason that these exist is to run the radio. Originally, I'm 90% sure that the original Stearmans did not have an electrical system. Don't quote me on that, but I believe this is a modern edition. Throttle and mixture, right? A fuel selector, magnetos, came straight off a tractor, and just needle ball and airspeed, right? I mean, it's the absolute simplest form of aviation. I mean, this is more rudimentary than any general aviation airplane today. But you learn so much about true stick and rudder flying, right? I mean, the sound of the wind through the wires tells you what airspeed you're going. The fly by the seat of your pants, which, you know, I'd always heard it, and it always eluded me in a Cessna or something, because my flight instructors would say, "Oh, you can't feel that you're in a slip," and I couldn't. Whereas in an airplane like this, you feel it because you're sitting 6 feet behind the center of gravity. So if you throw the airplane into a slip, you're moving sideways, and you feel it, right? Hang flyer. During World War II, my father took his primary training in a PT-17 at Thunderbird Field. Thunderbird Field. You were expected to three-point your airplane on your solo flight. He said that a ground loop could wash you out. Wow. The standards of training back then were incredible, because so hang flyer, how many hours did he have when he soloed? Probably what, 10? I imagine it was not a whole bunch. All right, we got the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse up here ahead. Right there. There's the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. We'll just point over there. Point over that way. The other thing that is incredible to me is just the magnitude of the flight training operation back during World War II, right? I mean, we will never see a mobilization of industry and just the citizenry that we did during the 5 years of World War II, 4 years of World War II. It's, I mean, look at all the airfields, right? A vast majority, maybe not a vast majority, but a lot of the airfields, they're still around today, trace their history back to U.S. Navy or Army Air Corps training fields during the war. Okay, so our flight plan is to go to the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse right here, and then there are 3 airports, basically 20 miles apart here. So we'll go to the lighthouse, and then we should see Billy Mitchell Field. Or sorry, it's only 2. It's Billy Mitchell Field and then Okracoke. So we're looking for 2. Pass one airport, land at the second one. And we'll do a quick flyby of the town of Okracoke before we land there. So we'll fly by the lighthouse, and then we'll climb up 1,500 feet down the coast, so we don't run into somebody at Billy Mitchell Field. 9 hours. Wow. Hang flyer. So having never seen an airplane, never touched an airplane, to this machine, which is a fairly large, intimidating airplane, and then solo it in 9 hours. That's incredible. And that's, in a way, we're very lucky to get to fly these things both in the sim and in real life, right? Because now we get to fly them and enjoy them. I mean, you get to go take a Stearman up and actually enjoy flying. You know, back during the war, they were training. This was work. You know, there was no such thing as let's jump in the Stearman and go get lunch. This was, you were training for war. And so, I don't know. I mean, you talk to a lot of those guys, and the fun aspect was kind of lost in the fact that it was work, and you didn't want to fail out of training. You know, so the fact that we get to fly these machines recreationally today, I bet they're more fun to fly now than they were then. And there's something about being able to just stick your hand out the window of an open cockpit biplane that, I don't know, it's just a different kind of flying. Maybe helicopters would be the same, but I've never experienced anything in fixed-wing aviation that's quite like flying an open cockpit. And chugging behind a radial engine that's just got a unique sound, and the smell of burnt oil just takes you back. Yeah, we need Boris sounds for this airplane. Boris Stearman sounds win. Stephen Daniel, you get the smell of burning oil in your old Subaru. I imagine that the people who restore old cars kind of feel similarly about them as I feel about the old airplanes. All right, always checking the engine instruments. Oil's right at 200, so it's on the high side, but it's right around normal. Cylinder heads are looking fine, just below 400. Yeah, everything's looking good. Running a little on the hot side, but it's probably to be expected. See if we can see the lighthouse up here. There it is. Here's the Cape Hatteras lighthouse. This makes me want to go find a Stearman to fly. Maybe we can talk V1 into buying a Stearman instead of a Turbine Duke, huh? Think he'd spring for it? Here's the lighthouse. That's what it looks like. Well, I feel like there's not this many trees in real life. Admittedly, it's been 15 years since I've been here, but there it is. Diabetic lad, yeah. I think once he flew a Stearman for the first time, he'd be hooked. Okay, so we're about 20 miles from Okracoke. Billy Mitchell Field should be ahead on the left. Let's see. This is why a pair of binoculars is actually really handy when you're flying these old airplanes. Yeah, right there. All right, so there's Billy Mitchell Field, and then Okracoke should be just beyond that. Let's see. There's a little break in the barrier islands, and then just beyond the break is where Okracoke is. Okay. So, got the break in the barrier islands right here. This is actually Okracoke Island right here, and the airport's on the southern tip of the island. So we're almost there. Climb up to 1,500 feet. And again, very simple airplane. I mean, there's no fuel selector to change or anything like that. It's pretty simple. Okay. The only restriction is to avoid ops between 1,500 and 1,600 RPM, just for a resonant vibration in the engine-prop combination. So we'll probably go down to 1,600 RPM and then, or 1,650, see if that does it for us. And if it doesn't, then we'll bring it back down to 15. Carb heat always comes on during descent. And again, it's more of a thing you can feel, vice any specific number on the gauge. So it kind of goes back to that seat of the pants flying we were talking about. And then in the pattern, we'll fly 75 knots. So what would that be in miles an hour? So about 85 miles an hour. And then final approach speed will be about 70. And then we'll slip as required. Let's see. Did we fly over Billy Mitchell Field already? Might be below the wing. Oh yeah, there it is. All right, so there's Billy Mitchell Field and Okracoke up ahead. So about this time we'd jump on Unicom and tell the restaurant that we were 15 minutes out. There is Okracoke Airport. So what we'll do is we'll come over here, we'll fly by the town of Okracoke, and then we'll enter a left downwind, or sorry, right downwind to land. Fuel is looking good. We're right around half a tank, it looks like. I wonder if we can jump in the front seat, actually. Can we do that? See what Zippy's seeing up here? I don't know if anything's modeled. Oh boy. Yeah, there we go. That's usually about the seating position that you've got up here. Yep, all the same stuff. Just the visibility is worse because you're kind of right tucked in underneath the wing, and can't really see quite as much out the front as you can from the back, which is a little ironic, but what a cool spot. All right, well, I suppose we did a roll to the left, so we probably need to unwind by doing one to the right. Oh boy, really tucked the nose on that one. There we go. That's not incredibly representative of how the real airplane rolls, but that's fine. Water, that's called a dished out roll. We're fine though, everything's fine. We should take this thing up and do some aerobatics in it next time. See if I can find the primary training syllabus aerobatics. All right, let me get G's and flight recorder up. There we go. Okay, flight recorder is up. Here we go. So we'll make sure the parking brake is off. Not sure why that got set. That's actually there's two different brakes you could use on a Stearman. There's stock brakes, which are expander tubes, and then there's Redline, which are aftermarket disc brakes. And the Redlines are almost too powerful for the airplane, and so a lot of times you can see Stearman's nose over on landing, and it's because people are too aggressive getting on the brakes, and the red lines are more effective than the original brakes were. So very, very important to make sure that the parking brake is not set for landing, and to make sure that your passenger knows to stay away from the pedals at all times. All right, carb heat's coming on for the descent. Yeah, GAS did a nice job with this. There is the airport right there. And we do have some aftermarket scenery for the town of Okracoke, so we'll see how that represents things. I wish this airplane worked in 24. This is the kind of flying that I think 2024 would be exceptional at. Might have to drag and drop it over and see if it flies. And as we descend, remember to do clearing turns, just clearing the area ahead of us, since the visibility is somewhat poor. You don't really have to worry about stage cooling or shock cooling or anything like that in these engines, just because the engine is basically sitting out front the entire time. So it's really just a matter of pulling 100 RPM or so off, putting the nose down, which is nice because it, really simplified things for student pilots who had better things to worry about, like how to navigate, how to properly fly an airplane. All right, the airport should be up here on the left. There it is. That cut out in the trees right there. So there's the airport. And we're just going to loop here around the town, enter a right downwind, and give it our best shot. Yeah, if anyone has this and has tried it in 2024, let me know. I may try a little experiment this evening before I leave on my trip. Because this is the kind of flying that I think the new sim is pretty good at. Force Raptor, it seems being exposed to the elements would bring about physical shock cooling. So I think the bigger thing is that the NACA cowls that they developed later in the 30s and stuff actually are more efficient at cooling the cylinders than just hanging them out in the air like this. I mean, because you notice there's no baffles on these cylinders. They're just hanging out in the open. And so, the NACA speed ring cowl and the cowl that Wiley Post developed, the ring cowls actually increase pressure differential and cool the cylinders better than just hanging them out in the open like this. So the cooling systems on, like a Stearman or a Piper J3 Cub that just hangs the cylinders out in the open, Oh, to your body. Yeah, so shock cooling of your person is, that's a real thing. I think the joke is that you don't go flying in temperatures that are double your age or less. All right, here we go. Carb heat's on. Power's pulled back about 1650, avoiding that resonant range. Ah, there it is. That's the town of Okracoke. As we slow down here, get down to 1,000 feet. So this is the area that you can walk around So you get a ride from the airport down here, down this road into town, and there's some good like seafood places right along this area. I think the lighthouse was the scenery edition. Climb back up to 1,000. Jeff James said McNally's. Yeah. What's the name of this one that I'm thinking of that I can't remember the name of it, but it's where we always used to go. It's a place that would pick you up from the airport. All right, so here's our 45 for downwind. Mixture is full rich. Gas is on. Undercarriage is down and bolted. No problem to worry about. Seat belts are securely fastened. Tail wheel is locked. Although the Stearmans I've flown don't have tail wheel locks, but I think the Navy airplanes had them originally. Okay, so coming from any other airplane, in a biplane, you don't reduce power at the normal point because it will fall out of the sky. So we want about 70 miles an hour. At 60 miles an hour, you can land it, but it's an arrival. There's not much float in the flare. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually stay at pattern altitude until we turn base. So about, here, you'd be high in a Cessna, right? But we're going to stay up at pattern altitude because when we pull the power back, this thing is, they come down. All right, so there's 45 degrees off. So we're going to turn. Going to turn down, or across, base rather. And now we're going to close the power out and pitch for 70. Might be a little high here. Yeah, the fisheye of the sim kind of screwed me up. We'll see. If we have to go around, we'll go around. Overshot the turn too. Shooting for 70, putting in a slip. So I've got a full boot of rudder, and I'm actually going to swap that to the other side here. Yeah, we might have to go around here. Actually, it's coming down. There we go. So you keep the slip in, and then in the flare, take the rudder out, and just hold it. And we're going to try and get a 3-point attitude here. It does not float that much in real life. There we go. And we're down. 51 feet a minute, according to G's. There we go. We'll take a look at that on the replay. So definitely floated and came in a little bit high, but you get the idea. All right, so we'll take the tail wheel lock off, and we'll try and flip this thing around here. Water, going to meet some trees in a second. So the stopping a Stearman is not a problem. The touchdown occurs right around maybe 40 knots, so it slows down pretty quick. But we did float more than I wanted to, just because we were high coming down final. But you could see that you put the airplane into a slip, and you hold that slip all the way down final approach. And you do that so that you can see, because you basically put the runway out here so that you can keep an eye on it the whole time. We'll take a look at the replay. We'll see how that was. I think we're about 10 knots fast, and that just contributed to us floating all the way down the runway. What do you think, chat? Should we do another one? do one more landing. We'll see if the car's here to take us to lunch. Yeah, diabetic lat. It's 100% for viz. It's not for drag. The other thing too is that it kind of helps in that if you fly the pattern with the assumption that you're going to have a full slip in, if you lose the engine, you can take the slip out and gain a little bit of performance back. That's the other thing, the other reason. All right, we'll do another one. We'll do one more. He's doing some S turns here. All right, mixture's coming full rich. Carb heat's coming off. We got enough gas for one more. All right, so you can swap ends into Stearman real quick, but you want to be real slow when you do it because it does have a very high center of gravity. So. Here we go. Stick all the way aft, bring the power up, and then try and take off in that tail low attitude. There it is. There's the tail low attitude, and we're off. Okay, let it accelerate. We'll clear the obstacles. We'll pull the power back, close the enrichment valve. We'll do a left traffic this time. All right, so the last one was 51 feet per minute. I think I found my steed for the landing competition. All right, gas is on, the undercarriage is down, mixture is rich, prop is full forward, seat belts and harnesses. All right, there's a downwind. 500 feet, still got to get all the way up to 1,000. We're a little bit tight on downwind too. That's a little better. Carb heat's coming on, and we'll pull the power a little bit early just for sim purposes, and one for 70. Yeah, this is looking better. Okay. As we turn final, we want to put in that opposite rudder. And you come down final like this with the nose kicked out. So I've got full right rudder, watching the airport out to the left. And now if we lost the engine, we're a little slow. If we lost the engine, we just take the slip out and hopefully that would get us to the airport. All right, keep coming down final in the slip, smoothly take it out. Now track center line on either side of the nose and find that 3-point attitude. There's 3-point, little high, little firm, but we're down. The sim has a lot more float in it. The real airplane, I think ground effect is overmodeled in the sim because when you pull the power out and round out there at the end, you get 2 or 3 seconds to get the touchdown right, and then it's out of Schlitz. So that ground effect float is not representative of the real airplane, but the concept of an approach in a full slip, so you can see coming down final, is pretty accurate. So. Well, that was fun, y'all. All right, so we're coming back going to pull the mixture back just a touch. Don't want to lean it. Again, these radials don't run super well lean, so there's two schools of thought. Some guys lean them a little bit, others just leave them full rich. We'll actually probably just leave it full rich because we're at sea level. And just run it as close to 600 RPM as you can and let everything cool off and let the temperatures stabilize. Taxi in. Remember the stick's all the way back in your lap when you're taxiing in, assuming calm wind. Yeah, the outside sounds are much better than the inside sounds, for sure. Taxi up. And turn the carb heat off. Now you can tell I don't taxi for a living. Alright, there we go. Trim, reset to neutral, and we'll do the shutdown procedure. So we got the brakes held. We can turn off the avionics and everything. And then we're going to run the engine up to 1100 RPM. Hold that for 30 seconds, and that's just scavenging as much oil as possible back into the oil pan. Then we'll bring it to idle and turn the mixture off. All right, and idle, mixture at idle cutoff. There she goes. All right, fuel valve off, gust lock. All right, there it is. All right, let's take a look at the replay, see how we did. Let's see, we'll go back to the first landing. There we go. So here we are, we're coming down final. Had the full left slip in, now we're putting the full right slip in. And this is where, you know, as a spectator, these things are really coming out of the sky here. There you go. Get into ground effect, kick it straight. Now you're just fighting for that 3-point attitude. And this is the phase where the real airplane really just falls out of the sky. It's a lot draggier than the sim leads you to believe. That was acceptable. Little bounce off the mains, but not terrible. What is terrible is the center line control, right? So in a tailwheel airplane like this, you're trying to make the runway on either side of the cockpit look the same, and in that case we didn't. So got to do better on that for next time. And then we'll take a look at the next one. Again, we've got that full slip. Because there's no flaps on the Stearman, so the slip is the only thing that you've got as far as drag. And here you'd get about 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, and it would be out of airspeed. But in the sim, we're just fighting for that 3-point attitude, and got all 3 points at once. And then make sure you keep flying it. So that the second one was actually much better. But then again, center line control on the rollout. There we go. Let's see, is there a way I can decouple the camera from the airplane? Well, can't figure out how to do tower view, so we'll just watch one more, and then we'll be out of here. Drone cam follow off. Thought I did that. Drone cam follow is grayed out. Showcase, track off. It looks like it's grayed out for me. A Zoboed. Alright. Well, you're not here for the streamer content. Pick a free cam and showcase, then follow off. Alright. Alright, pick a free camera and showcase. Free camera in showcase. Ah! Hey, look at that. Alright, I am teachable. Alright. We'll do one more from here. And then there we go. It's premium streamer content right here. Can't even operate the camera. There we go. And actually, we want to be further down the runway here. There. About there. But yeah, how's that for a descent right now? We'll back that up. Pause. Yeah, the first time I saw a biplane landing, I thought he was going to crash. Diabetic lad, thank you. Ooh, I like that with the grass in the view. So there we go, and that's probably not even as aggressive as it would be in the real airplane. That's probably more like it right there with the nose down, slipping, and then when you kick it out, you don't get much time to get the touchdown figured out. The ground effect in 2020 has you float forever, but in the real airplane, as soon as you take that slip out, you get about 3 seconds to sort your life out. There we go. I'll take it though. Oh boy. Oh boy, wrong way. Alrighty, chat. Well, thanks for joining me for this stream. A little bit different, not an airliner, but I'm really a big fan of the Warbird. So we'll do some more of this. Hopefully we'll be able to get a T6 of some variety going, and then maybe jump in a Corsair or something. We could do either DCS or some of the 2020 Warbirds. So thanks for joining me. Appreciate it. Hope you had fun. Hope you enjoyed the little different changing content, and we'll see you all on the next one.